The Vexkari flagship hovered above the ruins of Proxima Centauri's third colony, its obsidian hull drinking in the light of the burning settlement below. Commander Urzak stood on the observation deck, 6 clawed appendages clasped behind his back, mandibles clicking with satisfaction at the devastation his forces had wrought. "Another successful culling. Exalted one," said Lieutenant Nix Vera, her scaled skin reflecting the crimson glow of the fires below. "The bipeds offered minimal resistance as predicted." Urzak's compound eyes narrowed. "These humans are peculiar creatures. Their physical capabilities are underwhelming: fragile exoskeletons, limited sensory apparatus, inefficient respiratory systems, yet they persist in their defiance. Perhaps they haven't fully accepted their place in the cosmic hierarchy," Nix Vera suggested, displaying her venom sacs in the Vexkari equivalent of amusement. The Vexkari had discovered Earth 3 orbital cycles ago, identifying it as a potential threat despite its primitive technology. The species had spread to nearby star systems with alarming speed. The Dominion Council had designated humans as Category 7 vermin, a species that reproduced too quickly and adapted too readily to be allowed continued expansion. What followed was the systematic cleansing of human outposts across 3 star systems. The Vexkari, with their evolutionary advantages and technological superiority, considered it pest control rather than warfare. "Curious," Urzak muttered, reviewing the battle analytics. "This colony's resistance lasted 3.7% longer than our models predicted." "Statistical anomaly," dismissed Nix Vera. "Their biological constraints are immutable." A subordinate officer scuttled forward, carapace quivering. "Exalted 1, we've captured a human survivor, female designation. She was found attempting to transmit a message to their home system." Urzak's interest piqued. "Bring her to the interrogation chamber." The human was dragged before him, a slender female with pale skin and hair the color of Centaurian copper. Despite the obvious injuries, her posture remained unnaturally straight, her eyes unnervingly focused. "I am Commander Urzak of the Vexkari Dominion," he announced, the translation matrix converting his clicks and hisses into human speech. "Your species has been deemed evolutionarily unfit for interstellar expansion. You will provide all tactical information regarding Earth's defenses before your termination." The human, Valen Korich, according to her identification implant, showed no fear. This was unusual. Most species exhibited predictable terror responses when confronted by Vexkari. "You think you're the first monsters we've faced?" Korich spoke, blood trickling from her mouth. "Humanity crawled out of caves while predators 10 times our size hunted us. We survived ice ages and plagues. We've been killing each other with increasingly creative methods for millennia." Urzak leaned closer, intrigued by this behavioral anomaly. "Your species thinks it invented horror," she continued, a strange expression forming on her face. "Was that a smile? But where I come from, we're raised on horror. We entertain ourselves with it. We became the apex predator of our world not through strength or speed, but through our relationship with fear." Nix Vera hissed dismissively. "Psychological defense mechanisms." "Irrelevant." Korich's smile widened, revealing red-stained teeth. "You should have studied us more carefully before you declared war. You've awakened something ancient in us, something that evolved to fight monsters much worse than you." An alarm suddenly blared through the chamber. Urzak's carapace stiffened as the deck beneath his feet trembled. "Impossible," whispered Nix Vera, examining her data terminal. "Unknown vessels emerging from FTL, hundreds of them. Their signatures don't match any known human design." Korich's laughter was chilling. "You've been fighting our colonists, civilians with basic training. You haven't met our soldiers yet." The ship lurched violently as the first volley hit. "You should have killed us all when you had the chance," Korich said, blood-flecked smile never wavering. "Because now we know exactly what you are. Urzak felt something unfamiliar crawl along his spine, a sensation he'd never experienced in centuries of conquest. Fear. The Council of Seven convened in the obsidian chamber of the Dominion Nexus, their exoskeletons clicking nervously as they assembled around the holographic display. Grand Hierarch Vexaloth, ancient and massive even by Vexkari standards, loomed over the tactical projections displaying the unprecedented losses across 3 star systems. 27 battlecruisers destroyed, 42 colony worlds gone silent, 12 outposts completely vaporized, hissed Counselor Mesrath, her auxiliary limbs twitching with distress. How did primitive mammals accomplish this? The tactical display shifted to footage captured from a dying Vexkari warship. The human vessels didn't match any known configuration, asymmetrical, seemingly cobbled together from disparate technologies, yet moving with precision that defied Vexkari predictive algorithms. They've adapted our own propulsion systems, noted Counselor Taznak, the military strategist. But these energy signatures, they're entirely novel. Grand Hierarch Vexaloth's compound eyes narrowed. You all fail to understand what we face. These are not the actions of a species following natural evolutionary imperatives. This is something else, he gestured, and the hologram shifted to display a human prisoner, a male with dark skin and unseeing white eyes, captured during the counterattack on the Proxima outpost. The human's head was partially shaved, revealing an intricate network of cybernetic implants. Genetic modification, neural augmentation, biomechanical integration, Vexaloth enumerated. They are changing themselves. Heresy against natural order, gasped Mesrath. No species should willingly corrupt their evolutionary purity. The hologram displayed a battlefield recording. Human soldiers fighting with impossible coordination, their movements too fast, too precise. One took a direct hit from a Vexkari plasma cannon, a wound that should have vaporized most organic beings, yet continued fighting despite the grisly injury, as if pain itself had been engineered out. They call their elite forces nightmares, Vexaloth continued. Aptly named. Our scouts report that they volunteer for these modifications. They sacrifice their biological identity to become more effective killers. But why? Asked Taznak. Vengeance, replied Vexaloth. We miscalculated. Humans don't respond to threats like logical beings. They escalate. The tactical display updated again, showing the current battle lines. The Vexkari forces had been pushed back from human-controlled space, and disturbing reports indicated human fleets were now advancing toward Vexkari territory. We should sue for peace, suggested Counselor Ixazara, the youngest among them. Offer reparations. Too late, Vexaloth rumbled. Intercepted communications indicate they're not interested in peace. They speak of extermination and extinction. They're using our own terminology against us. A communication officer rushed into the chamber, carapace pale with fear. Grand Hierarch, we've decoded a transmission from the human flagship. It's being broadcast across all our frequencies. The hologram flickered, replaced by the image of a human female. Admiral Elawan Ravix stood perfectly. Still, her right side entirely cybernetic, metal and flesh fused in disturbing harmony. Her remaining human eye burned with cold intensity. Attention, Vexkari leadership, she began, her voice unnaturally modulated. You declared us vermin. You sought our extinction without provocation. You believed yourselves apex predators of the cosmic order. The Admiral's cybernetic eye glowed bright red. You were mistaken. On Earth, we evolved alongside true monsters. We survived by becoming something worse than what hunted us. What you've encountered so far is merely our first response. Your species has one solar cycle to surrender unconditionally. After that, we will show you what humanity truly capable of when threatened. When we're finished, the word Vexkari will be nothing but a cautionary tale told to frightened children. The transmission cut, leaving the council in stunned silence. "They're bluffing," Tasnak finally said. "They must be." Vexloth turned to face the council, his ancient eyes reflecting the star charts showing the advancing human fleets. "I don't believe they are. Prepare the evacuation protocols for our core worlds. The Vexkari have ruled this sector for millennia, but we have never faced an enemy like this. An enemy that transforms itself into monsters to fight monsters." As the council members dispersed, Vexloth remained, staring at the frozen image of Admiral Ravix's face, half human, half machine, wholly terrifying. "What have we awakened?" he whispered to the empty chamber. The military research facility on Europa Station hung in the shadow of Jupiter, its gleaming white surfaces betraying no hint of the work occurring within. In Laboratory Complex Alpha, Dr. Orion Kastav watched as his team prepared the latest prototype for demonstration. "The envoys from the United Earth Defense Council have arrived," announced his assistant, Moira. "They're waiting in the observation deck." Dr. Kostov nodded, his cybernetically enhanced eyes whirring softly as they adjusted focus. "Prepare the subject. I'll brief the envoys." In the observation deck, 3 figures waited. Admiral Ravix, whose cybernetic enhancements had expanded since the war began. General Helios Karzon, still fully human but bearing the intense stare of someone who had authorized countless deaths. And Counselor Xenia Vax, the civilian oversight representative, visibly uncomfortable in the military research facility. "Doctor," Admiral Ravix acknowledged with a metallic edge to her voice. "The Council is eager to see your progress. The Vexkari have adapted to our current generation of nightmares. We need something new." Dr. Kastav gestured toward the reinforced viewport which overlooked a circular testing chamber. "What you're about to witness represents the culmination of Project Nemesis, the next evolutionary step in our war effort." Below, technicians were escorting a humanoid figure into the chamber. The subject moved with unnatural fluidity, its form obscured by a specialized containment suit. "This is Major Lysander Voros," Dr. Kastav explained. "Former Special Forces. Volunteered after the Vexkari destroyed the Ganymede colony. His family was among the casualties." Counselor Vax leaned forward, frowning. "He appears unusual." "Major Voros has undergone extensive modifications," Dr. Kastav continued, his voice clinical. "Unlike previous nightmare units, which retained approximately 70% of their human physiology, the Nemesis protocol pushes that boundary to its limit." The technicians removed the containment suit, revealing what lay beneath. Counselor Vax gasped involuntarily. Major Voros barely resembled a human anymore. His skin had been replaced with a semi-translucent material through which pulsed an intricate network of artificial veins carrying luminescent fluid. His limbs had been reconfigured, joints now bending in directions human anatomy never intended. His face retained the basic structure of humanity, but his eyes, all 4 of them, glowed with an unnatural blue light. "We've incorporated elements of Vexkari biology," Dr. Kastav explained, pride evident in his voice. "Their exoskeletal strengths, sensory capabilities, even aspects of their neural architecture, all reverse-engineered and improved upon." General Karzon's expression remained impassive. "Can he still follow orders?" "Perfectly," Dr. Kastav assured him. "In fact, his cognitive processing speed exceeds our previous models by 340%. He retains all memories and personality structures, but with enhanced tactical capabilities." As if on cue, a side door in the testing chamber opened, admitting a captured Vexkari warrior, one of the elite Sovereign Guard based on its distinctive crimson carapace. The creature hissed, mandibles clicking aggressively as it assessed this. "Strange opponent. We've allowed this specimen to retain its combat capabilities," Dr. Kastav noted, "for demonstration purposes. The Vexkari struck first, moving with the legendary speed that had made their species such formidable opponents. Its claws slashed toward Major Voros's throat, a killing blow against a normal human. Voros didn't dodge. Instead, he caught the Vexkari's strike mid-motion, his enhanced limbs moving faster than the aliens. What followed wasn't combat so much as systematic dismantling. Voros moved with impossible precision, targeting structural weaknesses in the Vexkari anatomy that even the aliens themselves didn't know existed. Within moments, the once fearsome warrior lay immobilized, its carapace fractured in multiple places. "Impressive," Admiral Ravix said, her cybernetic eye scanning and recording every detail. "How many can we produce?" "The current limitation is finding suitable candidates," Dr. Kastav replied. "The psychological strain is immense. Not everyone can endure becoming something this different." Voros looked up at the observation window, somehow sensing their discussion. His four eyes blinked in unsettling synchronization as he inclined, his head in a human gesture that seemed grotesquely out of place on his transformed body. "We've created something the Vexkari cannot comprehend," Dr. Kostov continued. "They operate on rigid evolutionary principles. The strong survive, the weak perish. But humans, we change the rules. We sacrifice our humanity to win." "Counselor," Vax finally found her voice. "But at what cost? When this war ends, what will we have become?" Dr. Kastav turned to her, his enhanced eyes gleaming. "That, Counselor, is a question for philosophers. I'm merely ensuring there will be humans left to ask it." The Vexkari prison world of Desolar hung in the void like a cracked obsidian marble, its atmosphere perpetually shrouded in thick clouds. Below those clouds, First Lieutenant Kira Neveris trudged through ankle-deep mud, her specialized infiltration suit barely distinguishable from the darkness surrounding her. Above, twin moons cast eerie blue shadows across the desolate landscape. "Movement detected ahead," whispered the voice of Sergeant Riker in her neural implant. "Patrol formation, 6 Vexkari sentries." Kara held up a closed fist, and the 5 other members of Reaper Squad froze in place, their light-absorbing suits rendering them nearly invisible in the gloom. They had been on planet for 36 hours, moving steadily toward the coordinates, where intelligence suggested human prisoners were being held. "Rules of engagement?" asked Corporal Deimos, the team's heavy weapons specialist. His voice carried an artificial undertone, the result of having his vocal cords replaced after a Vexkari acid attack. "Silence over speed," Kira replied. "We need to reach the detention center without alerting the garrison." They waited as the patrol passed, the Vexkari moving with the mechanical precision characteristic of their species. Once the path was clear, the team advanced, using the natural rock formations for cover. "Comms check," Kira sub-vocalized. "Strike Team Valkyrie status?" "In position at the southern perimeter," came the response from Captain Alara Frost. "Ready to create your diversion. On signal." "Nightmare Unit Thanatos?" "Standing by," replied the deep, distorted voice of Commander Voros. The mention of the Nemesis-class soldier sent an involuntary shiver down Kira's spine. She had seen the footage of what Voros and his kind could do. The prison complex loomed. Ahead, a massive structure of black metal and stone, its architecture alien and imposing. According to their intelligence, over 300 human prisoners were held inside, survivors from conquered colonies. The Vexkari didn't typically take prisoners, which made this facility's existence particularly concerning. As they approached the outer perimeter, Sergeant Riker deployed a specialized drone, a biomechanical construct designed to mimic local fauna. Through its eyes, they observed the facility's defenses. "Multiple turret emplacements," Riker reported. "Thermal scanners, motion detectors, gravitational sensors. They've upgraded their security since our last encounter." "They're learning," Kira noted grimly. "Adapting. The drone's feed suddenly captured something unexpected. A group of prisoners, being led from one structure to another. But these weren't ordinary captives. Even through the grainy feed, Kira could see the surgical modifications, the unfinished cybernetic implants. "They're experimenting on them," Deimos growled, his artificial voice carrying no emotion, though. His intent was clear. "Change of plans," Kira decided. "We move now. Valkyrie team, initiate Alpha Protocol. Thanatos unit, you have clearance to engage with extreme prejudice." The night erupted into carefully orchestrated chaos. From the southern perimeter came a series of explosions as Valkyrie team attacked the facility's power generators. Alarms blared across the complex as Vexkari warriors rushed to respond. Reaper Squad moved like shadows through the confusion, their neural implants allowing them to coordinate with perfect precision. Kira led them toward the detention blocks, eliminating any resistance with silent efficiency. They reached the central prison hub and were met with a sight that froze even their battle-hardened hearts. Transparent cells lined the walls, each containing humans in various stages of vivisection and experimentation. Some were conscious, eyes pleading silently through the barriers. "They're trying to understand us," Riker whispered, horror evident, despite his military discipline. "Trying to figure out how we're changing ourselves." Kira accessed the control terminal, her neural implant interfacing with the alien technology. "They're studying our augmentations, trying to create their own versions." As they began freeing the prisoners who could still be moved, a massive explosion rocked the facility. Through security feeds, they watched as Commander Voros tore through the Vexkari defenders like they were made of paper, his enhanced form moving with terrifying grace. "What happens when this war is over?" Deimos asked suddenly, helping a weakened prisoner to stand. "What place will there be for things like him? For people like us?" Kira had no answer as she led them toward the extraction point, the facility burning behind them. Screams of Vexkari warriors echoing through the night. A sound once thought impossible from a species that prided itself on emotional control. The question haunted her long after they left the planet's surface, the rescued prisoners safely secured aboard their stealth vessel. In their determination to survive, humanity had embraced its darkest potential. They had become the monsters they needed to be, but Kira couldn't shake the feeling that the true horror of this war wasn't what the Vexkari had done to humanity. It was what humanity had willingly done to itself. The Vexkari delegation arrived on the neutral station Osiris in a vessel stripped of weapons, an unprecedented concession from a species that had never before negotiated with lesser beings. The station, constructed in abandoned precursor ruins floating in deep space, offered perfect neutrality for what both sides privately referred to as the last hope for their respective species. Grand Hierarch Vexeloth led the delegation personally, his ancient exoskeleton bearing the ceremonial markings of supreme authority. Alongside him walked counselors Taznak and Ixazara, both visibly uncomfortable in the modified atmosphere of the station. "Remember," Vexeloth clicked softly to his companions, "show no weakness. These humans respect only strength, even in defeat." The human delegation awaited them in the vast chamber at the station's core, where towering columns of unknown material, remnants of the mysterious precursors, loomed over the proceedings. Admiral Ravix stood at the center, her cybernetic enhancements, now covering nearly 70% of her visible body. Beside her stood General Karzon and Dr. Kastov, representing the military and scientific branches, respectively. "Grand Hierarch," Admiral Ravix acknowledged, her voice carrying the metallic undertone that had become common among human leaders. "Your presence honors us." Vexeloth inclined his massive head slightly. "The Dominion recognizes the necessity of this dialogue." They gathered around the ancient precursor table, a circular platform that softly glowed with internal light. Neither side trusted the other enough to sit. Let us speak plainly, Admiral Ravix began. Your forces have been pushed back to your core worlds. Your fleets are decimated. Your colonies have fallen. By all conventional metrics, the Vexkari Dominion has lost this war. Yet you offer negotiation rather than extermination. Vexaloth observed, compound eyes studying the Admiral carefully. Why? Dr. Kastav stepped forward, his enhanced eyes whirring softly. Because we've reached a mutual point of no return. Our intelligence indicates you've begun implementing your own version of our augmentation protocols. The accusation hung in the air. Counselor Ixazara's mandibles clicked rapidly, the Vexkari equivalent of nervous agitation. You forced our evolutionary hand, Vexaloth admitted. Our species has always progressed through natural selection. What you suggest, artificially accelerating our evolution, was considered heresy until recently. Yet you've done it, General Karzan noted. Our forces encountered your first-generation enhanced warriors in the Rigel sector. Impressive adaptations. Vexaloth's exoskeleton shifted subtly, a sign of discomfort. Limited augmentations, necessary for survival. And therein lies our mutual problem, Admiral Ravix said. This arms race of biological and technological enhancement will end with neither of our species recognizable as what they once were. We are both becoming monsters. Holographic displays activated around the table showing projections of evolutionary trajectories for both species. The simulations depicted increasingly grotesque transformations, humans evolving toward machine consciousness, Vexkari incorporating synthetic components that violated their most sacred biological principles. The war has entered a phase where victory means self-destruction, Dr. Kostov explained. Our latest Nemesis-class soldiers are already experiencing psychological fragmentation. Your enhanced warriors are reportedly suffering cascading genetic instabilities. For several moments, silence reigned in the ancient chamber. The weight of the situation pressed down on both delegations, the recognition that they stood at the precipice of mutual extinction, not through direct conflict, but through the loss of what made each species itself. What do you propose? Vexaloth finally asked. Admiral Ravix's human eye, the only original part of her face remaining, fixed on the Grand Hierarch. A covenant. Not peace. We're beyond that possibility. But mutual preservation, defined boundaries, prohibited technologies, restoration of biological baselines where possible. And enforcement? Taznak demanded. What prevents either side from continuing these developments in secret? Nothing but mutual assured destruction, General Karzan replied bluntly. And perhaps something more fundamental, the recognition that there are lines neither species should cross, no matter the provocation. The negotiations continued for 17 hours. Arguments flared, threats were made, ancient grudges revisited. But gradually, a framework emerged, the Osiris Covenant, a document outlining technological and biological restrictions that would bind both species. As the delegates prepared to depart, Vexaloth approached Admiral Ravix privately. You could have destroyed us completely. Why didn't you? Ravix studied the ancient alien, her cybernetic eye glowing softly. Because we recognized ourselves in what you were becoming, and it terrified us. Vexaloth's compound eyes blinked slowly. We thought ourselves the apex predators of the galaxy until we encountered humanity. We believed ourselves to be demons to lesser species. We were wrong. The true horror, Ravix replied, wasn't what you did to us. It was what we were willing to do to ourselves to defeat you. As the Vexkari delegation departed, Admiral Ravix watched their ship disappear into the void, wondering if either species would truly honor the covenant they had just created, or if the evolutionary arms race had merely been temporarily paused. The war had ended. The struggle to remain human and Vexkari had just begun. 10 years after the Osiris Covenant, The demilitarized planet of Harmony hosted the first official cultural exchange between humans and Vexkari. The sprawling complex, built specifically for interspecies gatherings, accommodated the physiological needs of both species. Separate atmospheric chambers connected by transparent barriers allowed for visual interaction without biological stress. Major. Lysander Voros, now Ambassador Voros, stood before the barrier, his form still bearing the marks of the Nemesis Protocol, though many of his more extreme modifications had been reversed under the Covenant's restoration programs. His 4 eyes had been reduced to 2, though they still glowed with artificial enhancement. His limbs had been reconfigured to more closely resemble human norm, though his movements retained an unsettling fluidity. On the other side, former Counselor Ixara regarded him with equal curiosity. She too showed signs of the war's legacy. Parts of her exoskeleton had been reinforced with synthetic materials during the conflict, adaptations that could not be fully removed without risking her life. "It is strange," Ixara's translator conveyed, "to meet as diplomats when we were created to destroy each other." Voros inclined his head. "The strangest battlefields often become the most meaningful sites of peace." They had been assigned to co-chair the Joint Historical Documentation Project, a controversial initiative to create an objective account of the war that had nearly destroyed both civilizations. Behind them, teams of human and Vexkari scholars worked separately but in parallel, occasionally consulting across the barrier. "My people still struggle to understand," Ixara admitted, "why your species pushed itself to such extremes. The concept of willingly sacrificing biological purity for tactical advantage violates our most fundamental principles." Voros considered the question carefully. 10 years of intensive therapy had helped him reconnect with his humanity, but the memories of what he had been, what he had done, remained crystal clear. "Humans evolved in constant danger," he explained. "Our earliest ancestors lived in fear. Of predators, of starvation, of the elements. Later, we feared each other. Our history is written in survival adaptations. When the Vexkari threatened our existence, we reached for our oldest evolutionary strategy: adaptation at any cost. Yet now you work to undo these adaptations," Ixara observed. "Because we recognized the precipice we stood upon," Voros replied. "Our scientists estimated that within 3 more generations of the Nemesis Protocol, the subjects would no longer be recognizably human, not just in form, but in thought. We would have become something else entirely." Their conversation was interrupted by an alert. Dr. Orion Kastav had arrived for the scheduled presentation. The doctor had aged considerably since the war, refusing most life extension treatments, in what many interpreted as penance for his role in creating the Nemesis program. In the central chamber, modified to accommodate both species, Dr. Kastav activated the holographic display. Representatives from both sides watched as images appeared. The progression of modifications both species had undergone, from the first generation of enhanced human soldiers to the final terrifying iterations of the Nemesis units, alongside the progressive alterations the Vexkari had implemented in their desperate attempt to keep pace. "What we almost became," Dr. Kastav said softly, his enhanced eyes, the one modification he had kept, scanning the audience. "This shared record serves not as a technical manual, but as a warning." The presentation continued, documenting the escalating biological arms race that had nearly consumed both species. Many in the audience shifted uncomfortably as they confronted the visual evidence of how far both sides had been willing to go. "The true horror of war," Dr. Kastav concluded, "is not what we do to our enemies, but what we will do to ourselves. To achieve victory, both our species now stand guard not against each other, but against our own capacity for self-transformation in the name of survival." After the presentation, as the delegates dispersed, Voros found himself alone with Dr. Kastav. The 2 men, creator and creation, stood in silence for a moment, watching through the viewport as the twin suns of harmony set behind distant mountains. "Do you regret what you did to us?" Voros finally asked, the question he had carried for a decade. Kastav's shoulders sagged slightly. "Every day, but I would do it again if faced with the same circumstances. That's the terrible truth none of us want to acknowledge." "The Vexkari believe we are demons," Voros said quietly, "beings who violated natural law." "Perhaps we are," Kastav replied, "but we're also the demons who recognized ourselves in the mirror and chose to turn back." Later that night, alone in his quarters, Voros stood before his reflection, studying the features that still marked him as something not quite human. His enhanced vision could detect the subtle glow of remaining implants beneath his skin, the non-standard bone structure that no restoration surgery could completely normalize. He thought of the Vexkari, a species that had considered itself the apex predator of the galaxy until it encountered humanity. They had thought themselves demons to lesser species, only to discover that humans had been shaped by far worse demons throughout their evolution: fear, scarcity, and their own unrelenting drive to survive at any cost. The communication panel chimed, displaying an incoming message from Earth. His daughter's face appeared on the screen, a child born after the war who had never known the full horrors her father had participated in. "Dad!" she exclaimed, eyes bright with excitement. "How was the first day of the exchange?" Voros felt a smile form, a purely human expression that had once been impossible for his modified face. "Productive. We're making progress." "Are the Vexkari still scary up close?" she asked with childlike curiosity. Voros considered the question carefully. "They're different from us, but no. They're not the monsters we once thought they were." "Mom says you helped stop the war," his daughter said proudly. "That you were a hero." The word made him uncomfortable, but he didn't correct her. The full truth was a burden for another day. Instead, he simply said, "Many people on both sides eventually chose peace over extinction. That was the real victory." After ending the call, Voros returned to the viewport, gazing up at the stars. Somewhere out there, other species watched the uneasy peace between humans and Vexkari with keen interest. The galaxy had learned an important lesson: invade humanity at your peril. Not because humans were physically imposing or naturally superior, but because humanity's greatest weapon had always been its willingness to transform itself to meet any threat, a double-edged sword that had nearly cost them their very humanity. The true horror wasn't what came from the stars. It was what had always lived within.